But this also is about the rise and fall of nations. The Shemitah gives the key about when nations rise and fall. It has to do with America. Let me give you an example how this mystery is so big, it's affected everything. Shemitah, it actually can be taken as I said, shaking or falling or collapsing. 1917, you have the year of the Shemitah. You have a collapse on Wall Street, but you also have a shaking of the nations called the First World War. The Shemitah is about collapsing. In that war, you have the collapse of powers, collapse of 4 empires, the German Empire, the Hungarian, the Russian, the Ottoman, all collapse in the year linked to the Shemitah. And you also have, the Shemitah is linked to the rise of nations. 1917 is the year that begins America's rise of world power on the stage. It enters the First World War. This is considered that. And so you have the beginning of this rise. But if you take it 4 Shemitahs later, which is 28 years, interesting, 4 in the Bible is a number of kingdoms. It takes you to 1945, and you have another global cataclysm. You have the shaking of the world, shaking World War II coming. You have literally, actually, Hitler's attacks began in 1938. That was the year of the Shemitah. Goes 7 years till 1945 until it's over. Shemitah. The Holocaust, Kristallnacht. It's noted as 1938 as the fateful year. Year of the Shemitah. Ends 1945, year of the Shemitah. When you reach the peak of the Shemitah, you also get the peak of World War II, summer of 1945. You're approaching the Shemitah's day of nullifying things. Well, this is the day of wiping out. Unleashed on the world is the greatest power of wiping out ever. The atomic nuclear warfare comes on at the end of World War. It's like this crescendo. The war ends in the last week of the Shemitah, this whole 7-year period. And actually in Berlin, the Allies have a victory parade. It's on the day of the end of the Shemitah. I mean, so world history, this launches America as the superpower of the world, even the Cold War, in the year of the Shemitah. Now, if you go one more period, you go 4 Shemitahs later, 28 years, Shemitah can mean also the fall of a nation. It gets you to 1973. Key point. 1973, America decides to legalize the killing of unborn children. Same sin ancient Israel was judged for. And that same year also is the year America loses its first war. Vietnam collapses. On the same day, August 15th, that America won the war before in the other Shemitah. And so you have this thing of the fall now. And in the same year of that fall, you have the World Trade Center, which marks the same years that America legalized the killing of its children. Huh.
Okay, now with the amazing precision we've just seen in the past, what does that tell us about now in the future?
The Shemitah begins September 25th. I can remember happens to be my birthday, so it's easy. September 25th, and then it goes till September 13th, 2015. Now, let me tell you, a few things. One is 2 cautions. God doesn't have to do anything. It doesn't necessarily have to happen every time. However, other caution is he can. And the thing is that what the pattern is generally this. At the beginning of the Shemitah, you don't necessarily notice. Yeah, and that's the dangerous thing, because when you combine this all together, where America's going, when you combine the harbingers appearing and continuing, when you combine the Shemitah, that's the thing. The thing is this: in the last 2 Shemitahs, this is 2001, and then it's 2007 and 8. Yeah. You had the mystery is getting more and more precise and intense. It's a buildup because in 2001 you have the greatest stock market collapse in history happens on the exact day appointed in the Bible, Elul 29, to wipe out the financial accounts. 7 years later, 2008, you have the other greatest crash in American history, bigger, and it happens on the exact same day appointed in the Bible. The 2 greatest crashes happen exactly 7 Hebrew years apart, down to the days, the hours, to the seconds. So the mystery is getting more intense.
He's going so fast. Yeah. I want you to catch. It is so precise what he's saying. It's the year, the day, the second. I mean, what an awesome God we serve.
Yeah, and the thing is, what this indicates is there's an intensifying that means that the nation, we are progressing towards judgment. And that's exactly what's happening. It's in America. So, now, again, God doesn't have to do anything when we say, but I'd be aware.
All right, tell me the exact date it starts and it ends.
September 25th, and that's the start.
Of this year.
And usually, again, at the beginning, it's not necessarily so noticeable, but if something is chosen for this year, then it's usually as it builds up to its peak, that's usually when things happen, okay? Which is September 13th of 2015. Now, there's also, we've talked about this before, happens to be with the blood moon period as well. Because the blood moon period is a year and a half. Well, we're in that half part, but the year, what's left, is totally Shemitah. So it's all happening at the same time as Shemitah.
It's like a convergence of warnings.
It seems. And the other thing is that, here's another thing, Sid. In the Bible, one of the signs of judgment is the darkening of the sun. Now, we're not saying every eclipse is. However, there's something there. Here's the thing. Get this. When that peak day comes, Elul 29, it's going to be a solar eclipse marking that day. The great day of nullification at the end of the Shemitah is going to be a solar eclipse the same day. When we talked about the tower, putting this all together. When that tower, they just recently put the spire to make it the tallest in America, the day they put it up was another solar eclipse. And when the last time, Sid, when a solar eclipse happened on Elul 29, it was 1987, you had the greatest wipeout of Wall Street in history right after that. So not saying things have to, but things
all right.
Clearly in a bit of a panic mode for all the reasons you've been citing. Look, our warning cracks were a pretty significant decline in earnings expectations for this year during the first half of the year. Higher dollar, lower oil, slow economic growth, widening credit spreads. Now the issues of, well, where is the growth anyway? And of course, China is slowing. You have the technical deterioration that several guests have reported on, and you get this forced and accelerated selling. There are not a lot of people on the other side of the trade. It's August, and you often get volatility, as you know, and kind of that's what's driving things. I think we're rapidly reaching a near-term oversold from which we'll get a bounce, but I don't believe this corrective period is over yet. Most of the decline is probably behind us from a point standpoint, but I think we have more time to sort this out.
And what is it that you're going to look for, Bob, amid this? I mean, we were asking people, is this because of the Federal Reserve raising rates potentially? Is the fear of the Fed part of this at all? Or is it just global growth and looking to China here, which had a big miss in its flash PMI overnight?
Yeah, it's all of the above. The Fed is certainly in the equation. At the moment, if growth is too strong, oh my goodness, the Fed will raise rates, and that's not good. If growth is too weak, well, then we can't withstand weakness overseas. So good news is bad news, and bad news is bad news. That's what happens.
So noticeable, but if something is chosen for this year, then it's usually as it builds up to its peak, that's usually when things happen.